Right, next one. So let's take a look. This one is slightly different. We're going to look at the labour market, okay, and how wages are determined in a competitive environment for labour. So next, what is coming up? So what we're trying to work out is what makes this different. Well, there's a few things that make it different. The first thing is it's not like a normal diagram. So it's not like a normal supply and demand diagram that you might see when you look at other markets. Well, we've got a few differences. On this side, we're actually labelling this on this side, not price. Well, I suppose it is kind of price, but it's the price of labour. And of course, the price of labour is the wage level. So on this side, we've got wages. So it's still monetary, except we're looking at how much people get paid for the job that they're doing. And across the bottom, instead of number of or quantity of output or number of units, what we've actually got is the number of workers. So we're looking at the number of people that are going to be employed at any given wage level, right? So the next thing we're going to highlight is this. Now, this says the aggregate supply of labour, ASL, the aggregate supply of labour. Now, again, that is slightly different because normally when we deal with supply, we think about supply in terms of firms, in terms of businesses, right? So supply often means production in a product market. But in this case, the supply of labour actually comes from individuals that are willing to work for a particular wage. So it's actually the individual workers, the people, the population, the workforce, and those people that are willing to work at a certain wage level. And this line, which you'll notice rises and then falls, and it looks like a demand curve. Aggregate demand for labour, which is actually the demand for labour. When we think of demand, we might think of consumers, but that's not the case here because demand comes from firms. This is companies that demand workers, that want workers to be employed at that particular wage level. So these two almost feels like they're going to switch around a little bit when you're looking at labour markets. So don't get fooled by that to begin with. Next, you'll see a second label on here. This is MRP. And this is a concept called marginal revenue produce. MRP, marginal revenue produce. So what does that actually mean? Well, what it means is if you employ a person or a worker and they add a certain number of units to your output and you sell those units at a certain price, they will give you a monetary benefit from employing them. This is the marginal revenue produce. The additional revenue from the products that they produce when you employ that one person. And what that's telling us is that when you first start to grow your business, you see that actually from the very beginnings when you've got quite a small business, your marginal revenue produce starts to increase. So adding one additional worker will actually significantly benefit your organisation in terms of the revenue that is produced. And therefore, you'll be willing to pay them quite a high wage. But as time goes on and you grow and grow and grow your business, then over time, the marginal revenue produce that each individual worker adds gets less. And what that means is that you are willing and able to pay lower levels for those workers. So when you add individual workers, to begin with, it's highly beneficial. Then you continue, and it's still beneficial. And you're still going to employ these people here because they are adding more than it's going to cost you to employ them. This point here, however, is really important because that is where we find our balance, we find our equilibrium in that labour market. Because what happens at this point? Well, the workers that you employ up to here, all of those workers have added more than it costs you to employ them. But after that point, it will cost you more to employ them than they add value to your business. And therefore, you do not employ them. And what this does, it creates this equilibrium point in the middle of this diagram where it says at this wage level, with this number of workers, that is where the additional value that each worker adds will be equal to the cost of employing that worker. So you wouldn't necessarily then employ the next person, because imagine if you employed the next person along, they are providing less benefit in terms of monetary value to your business than it costs you to pay their wages. And that doesn't make any logical sense. And that is why we see this wage determination in the labour market. And that is why the market settles at that point. Let's leave that for today. Thank you.